All right, so let's go ahead and get this started. Quick sort of intro uh, explaining what this is. So this YouTube series is just a recollection of my past D&D campaigns, so my players have something to remember their adventures. I hope they enjoy it. Now, I take no credit for this campaign setting. I used the sourcebook Explorer's Guide to Wildemount for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, created by the company and show Critical Role. Now, I also curated the story using the sourcebook and my players' backstories for this particular campaign. This first campaign I am doing is my most recent and longest campaign. I will do the older campaigns after this, going all the way back to the very first campaign. So, with that, let's begin. So essentially, this campaign was formed online. It was all among strangers using the website startplaying.com. Excellent website if you want to begin your career as a online dungeon master or game master, whichever. They can help you facilitate that. It is just very time consuming. My throat hurt after a long time of talking all day long. So with that though, I created this campaign. It was actually the very first campaign on Start Playing that I got going, and we've been playing for years now. I think 3 or 4. Well, we're on year 4 by now. But anyways, this has been a great campaign, great players, and I'm going to do the older ones as we go on. But for this one, I'm going to start off with just the most recent one. The older ones, I'm going to have to go through a lot of DM notes and really search my memory, but I'm pretty sure I can do it. So with that, we're going to begin with the very first session. So the very first session of this campaign would actually begin with one player. So let's introduce that one player. So we start out with just one player character, and whenever I refer to player characters by their names, I'm just going to call them by the character name. I'm not going to call them by the player name, because that'll make things too obnoxious and confusing, like Jeff's character so-and-so, or his other character. We're just going to keep it down to just character names. So with that, we have our first player character, by the name of Wick Dawnsinger. Now, Wick is a red-headed fellow with emerald green eyes and a blue robe. He's very fair-skinned. And I'm not going to give too much away about him. That will be revealed, I suppose, later on. But for now, we have Wick Dawnsinger. And where our story begins is in a city known as Port de Mali, that is located on the southern coast of Wildemount, along the Lucidian Ocean. Now, if you don't know what any of this stuff is, it's fine. It's all from that source book. I think they even go to it in the show. Point is, you don't need to know any of this stuff. All right, it's all fictitious, high fantasy worlds that were created. So don't even worry about it. Just know that it's a fictitious place. But with that, we have Wick Dawnsinger beginning on a busy market street. So the market street, pretty standard. Think any high fantasy setting. That's pretty much it. I don't go into too much detail or description with my campaigns. I let your mind do it. So that's pretty much what we're going to do for this too. So think high fantasy. Busy market street. You got it. All right. Never mind that. But, so we have Port de Mali, Wick in a busy market street, and I threw the first story hook at him, Wick is beginning, he's in the just going about his day, basically just trying to get through the crowd, and he spots something that is out of the ordinary. He spots a father and daughter tabaxi. Now, tabaxis, they're just walking, talking cat people. So think Khajiit from Elder Scrolls. That's pretty much it. I even do the voice like the Khajiits, all right? I love Elder Scrolls. So, essentially, Wick sees them both peering down a manhole instead of actually, bartering and trading with the merchants there on the street. So he's like, well, seems pretty out of place. I think I'll go ahead and investigate and see if they need something, because Wick is a nice guy. So Wick goes over to him and introduces himself, and of course the Khajiit guy looks up and he's like, oh, hey, a vassal. He can tell from the looks of him, his robe and everything, that he's like, you're the guy that goes around helping people. You're one of those wandering mages. So more on that later. But anyways, the tabaxi explains to him the situation. While he was trying to trade something, his daughter dropped her favorite handmade doll down the sewer manhole, and essentially he was explaining. He's like, "Oh, my keen senses do not do well with the stinky stench of the sewers. I don't want to go down there." So with that, Wick's like, well, I can't smell anything because this is an imaginary game, so I'm going to go down there and find this doll. So with that, Wick pops open the manhole, climbs down the ladder, and doesn't find the doll. So pretty much immediately, he's like, I bet it fell in the water, and I bet it got carried away by the current. Now, there's a small chance that it didn't sink to the bottom of the sewer and instead got carried by the current. So with that, he's like, all right, it's a high probability it's that way. So he follows the current. He gets to the very end of this sewer tunnel where it dead ends with a big sewer grate that has enough perforation for water to pass through, but not necessarily a full-size like doll. So with that, he starts looking around. He finds a collapsed wall that has a pathway through it. And he's like, chances are something walked over there and picked up the doll and then went down this pathway. So he's like, all right. He's on his guard, though, now, because he's alone. If you've ever played a one-on-one session in D&D, you know that it's the most dangerous session of your life whenever you're in any sort of real combat-oriented situation. The smallest misstep could lead to death. So, with that, and he's already low level, so he's going to be careful. But with that, he goes in and he starts sneaking around, and he finds what appears to be sort of like a den. It's an old municipal room for the sewer system, but it was long forgotten and sealed off, seemingly, and it has been turned into this collector's den of a diseased goblin that lives down in the sewers. Now, it's a diseased goblin because he lives in the sewers, all right? He's just gross. He's down there all the time, so he has like little pustules and stuff like that coming off him. And Wick was thoroughly disgusted. But, anyways, with that, he sees the goblin. The goblin is using some sort of candlelight to inspect the doll. Obviously, the goblin got the doll. So from there, Wick is like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and watch for a bit. And eventually what ends up happening is the goblin is spying the doll, and he's like, wonderful. A handmade doll for my collection. Good. I'll just set this right here. And so he sets it down on this table that's right next to this large jar. And so this jar is it's got a severed hand in it. And Wick's already a little bit wary. He's like, that's probably not a normal severed hand. It's probably not. So, whatever. Anyways, the goblin sets the doll down, makes his way off, disappears down a different little collapsed passageway. He's got all sorts of secret tunnels. But with that, Wick stealthily makes his way in. He uses a sleight of hand check. He grabs some sort of like soft rubbish from the collection of bits and bobs, just things that have fallen down into the sewers this goblin's been collecting for seemingly years. So with that, he swaps it out, and he can tell that the severed hand inside the jar is in fact a tiny undead called a crawling claw. Now, so already Wick's like, oh crap, this thing's gonna probably notice me. But he rolled high enough on the sleight of hand check that he successfully didn't even alert it, right? I think it's got like blind sense or something like that. I'm not a encyclopedia of all that. But either way, Crawling Claw doesn't notice him. He rolls high. And from there, he's like, all right, I'm just gonna sneak out of here. And as he does, he successfully escapes, makes his way all the way down the collapsed passageway until he gets back to the actual sewer tunnel proper. And that's whenever he hears the angry screech of the goblin, because the goblin realizes something came into his home and stole his newest artifact. So he can immediately hear the goblin screaming and roaring, and Wick's like, all right, forget about stealth, I'm just running for it. So he just starts running down the tunnel, and he can hear the goblin's footfalls on the wet sewer stones as it's chasing after him, because the goblin knows the sewers better than Wick does. He knows them by heart, like the back of his hand. So with that, the goblin is hightailing it in Wick's direction, and he can hear it's got like a dagger or something like that dragging it across the stone wall. Like Wick knows that this thing's in hot pursuit of him. Anyways, he starts ascending the ladder. I'm pretty sure I threw a dexterity check at him to see if he would slip on the ladder rung and slip and fall back down. He didn't, of course. It's an excellent. He's incredibly lucky. But he makes all the way up to the top of the manhole, shuts the manhole, and he can hear the final angry roar of the goblin as it realizes its quarry has escaped it. And so from there, Wick is like, all right, hands off the doll to the Tabaxi father and daughter, and they are overjoyed and very pleased. And from there, essentially, Wick feels accomplished. He did this all on his own. And he's like, yeah, I'm the man. I did it. Anyways, Wick continues on down the market street until he finally gets to his actual destination, which is a stone alleyway that sort of breaks off into like a more shadier part of town. It's not necessarily shady. It's just actually literally darker. There's higher buildings, shadows casting down. It's not shady, all right? But anyways, so he's got he as soon as he turns down the alleyway, he encounters an important figure to him. So it's actually kind of like his mentor figure and his sort of surrogate father. And also, he's also the leader of Wick's order, his order of wandering mages known as the Vassals. So, quick bit about the Vassals and their leader. So the leader is a Triton, which is basically a sea elf. Don't think too hard about it. They're just blue-skinned elves with some scales, gills, fins, stuff like that. And it's nothing crazy. But they're elves, okay? They're sea elves. So Ferris is a Triton, and how he created the Vassals was by finding a genie at the bottom of the Lucidian Ocean. So this genie that he found is known as Urahazahir. And the reason why Ferris is the leader of the Vassals is because he was the first vassal. And he's very old. He's several centuries old. He found Urahazahir whenever he was younger, a much younger Triton. Anyways, in his old age, he's bald now. He's got a few scars. But he wears the same robe that Wick wears, although his is a bit of an older style and a little bit more faded and tattered. But he keeps it all the same. With that, let's see here. Let's do this real quick. Okay. But with that, so essentially, what Ferris is doing in that alleyway is he is awaiting Wick. And as Wick turns the corner and enters the alleyway, Ferris sort of turns to him and says, "So, are you ready to finally take the Pact and join us as a vassal?" You know, Wick's like, "Yes, I am. I'm here. I am here to finally take the Pact." And Wick, the character, the player Wick actually came up with all this stuff. It was pretty impressive. This is before AI was, everyone was using AI to come up with cool D&D stuff. Anyways, so with that, Wick and Ferris make their way down the stone pathway, towards the temple of Urahal-Zahir, and there awaiting them is other vassals that are all, waiting to welcome Wick into their ranks. So Wick and Ferris enter the temple of Urahal-Zahir. It's very dimly lit. It's got a quiet pool in the center. And once they reach the center, it's very eerie. And finally, emerging from the blue water is Urahal-Zahir. There's this great blast of vibrant white light, bluish white light from the pool. And in typical genie fashion, he comes out. He's all swole, except for this big old gut, because he's gotten fat over the centuries of growing more and more powerful with the help of the vassals. So he's got a bit of a belly. But aside from that, Urahal-Zahir, pretty chill dude. And he's like, "Hey, Ferris, what's up, man? You brought me another vassal to join your ranks. All right, produce the bottle." And so what he means by the bottle is there is this blue tinted bottle that the vassals use, right? It's just like blue tinted glass. It's got sailor like netting made out of rope that kind of like wraps around it, and then there's like a rope loop that's like the carry handle for it. But essentially, Ferris brings out the bottle, and what they do is Urahal-Zahir basically has Wick recite the Pact. I don't remember what it was. It was something along the lines of defend the weak, be brave in the face of adversity, go on adventures, grow more powerful, all that stuff. And with that, while he's reciting this Pact, and while holding the bottle, Urahal-Zahir is basically, he has like his fingertip over the very top of the bottle, and he's basically like pouring some sort of bright blue water into the bottle. And once he fills it to the top, the Pact is completed, and then Ferris grabs a cork, boop, corks the bottle, and from there, that's whenever essentially Wick has finally become a full-fledged vassal, but basically he became his actual class. He's a warlock. Now he's not Pact of the Genie. I think he did like the Pact of the Tome or something else. Doesn't matter. It's all flavor anyways. But essentially, from there, Urahal-Zahir, bids them adieu, and drops back down into his pool. The light fades. And from there, Ferris and Wick walk back out, and everyone, is congratulating him. High fives all around. It's pretty awesome. Wick feels, he's like, oh, wow, this is a great first session. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I know, right? But from there, finally, Ferris, after all the congratulations, Ferris tells him, he's like, all right, man, this is it. Now you got to go. You got to get out of here. You got to go adventure. You got to go do some quests. You just got to, just run around and cause mayhem, or more like help people and, do the right thing and everything. But you know how D&D goes. Sometimes things go awry. But from there, Wick's like, all right, yeah, I'll go. And journeys back down to that market street, where he spies a trader's caravan, a merchant's caravan that is loading up and getting ready to head northward towards the town of Tuasoa. And so from there, Wick's like, all right, I guess I'll try and sign on with them. And as he goes over there, there's this mean little dwarf with bald head and big beard. And as he spies him, or he spots him and looks him over, he's like, oh, look at you, another spell chucker. Glad to have you aboard. Come on. And so from there, this dwarf, Barrow Stone Turner, who is the leader of the caravan, hires Wick on as basically a sellsword. And from there, shortly afterwards, they set out towards Tuasoa. And then that's actually the end of the first session. And the next session that follows, that's whenever the rest of the party shows up. And I think it's actually the other 4 mainstays. There's always like a 6th player that is always like jumping in and out, or we were constantly rotating out a 6th player just because people would join and then leave, join and leave. But anyways, the 4 true mainstays join up in the second session. And so that is the end of this episode. And yeah, we'll start off with the I would say the introduction of the other players on the next episode. But until then, this is it. So, till next time.